Recently, I made a video talking about how old Nintendo was actually really shitty and new Nintendo is way better. When I say they're better, that does not mean they're good. That does not mean I like new Nintendo. They're still bad. Breaking one leg is better than breaking both your legs. That doesn't mean breaking one leg is good. Anyways, I got a lot of comments on that video. And amidst the 30-year-old men with 4 million Reddit karma booting up their Tony Stark setup to make fun of a 17-year-old, there were a lot of very good criticisms made. And with the amount of writing I was doing in the comments section, and the amount of arguments I missed, and with how well the first video did, I might as well just make another video. Why not? Here, I'll be looking at a lot of the good criticisms from my first video, as well as reading some of the other comments.
No, it's not. I'm not even gonna watch the video.
And if you haven't seen the first video, I highly recommend that you do after you watch this one, just so you get all of my arguments and the full context. Old Nintendo's prices. The 3DS's price was cut because it wasn't selling. Now, you might have to sit down for this. The Nintendo Switch 2 is in fact selling. Riveting information, I know. Also, I fully believe that Nintendo Selects are more than likely to come to the Switch in the future. Instead of looking at the number of years between the release of a console and the release of Nintendo Selects, I think it'd be way better to look at how it compares to the release of that console's successor. The Wii didn't get Nintendo Selects games until 2011, only a year before the Wii U released. And the Wii U, being the Wii U, obviously got them sooner, at 2 years before the release of the Switch. With the Switch being as successful as it is, and with the game still selling fairly well for the original $60 price, it makes sense why Nintendo Selects haven't come to the platform yet. They're supposed to bring value to ass-old games that aren't selling. If the games are still selling for that price, why would they discount them? The games will stop selling, that's a fact. Everyone who at one point wanted one of these games will get them, and people who think they're not worth it won't. And in order to make even more money off of these games, they'll bring back Nintendo Selects and try to win over the customer who thought it wasn't worth it in the start. Lots of people also complained that I made a big deal out of Pikmin costing $50 on the Wii, without realizing that full price for a game in 2007 was $50, even though most of these games got Player's Choice re-releases for $30. The only new things you got with $50 new Play Control games were the new Play Controls. And somehow Nintendo charging half of full price for 2-generation-old games is completely unforeseen. The reason for Nintendo's prices going down in the past isn't out of the goodness of their heart, or for the good of the consumer. It's to make more money in the long run. That's the only reason anybody cuts prices. During the Wii U era, Nintendo was so not profitable that they had to slash the price of the 3DS several times in order to keep themselves going. And after that, the 3DS's price was cut even more to milk it for everything that it was worth during the Switch generation. I don't like using the inflation argument because people's wages don't go up in the same way as prices do, which is why I didn't use it in my first video. But inflation is one of the reasons why companies raise their prices of everything. No one in any industry, unless you're Arizona Iced Tea, is gonna willingly make less on a good or service than they were before. I'm 100% sure Skittles would still be around today if they charged less for their product. But they won't. Nintendo is, and always has been, a company. And companies want to make the same, if not more, than they were making previously. I know for a fact that if Donkey Kong Bonanza was sold at $20 a pop, they would have made a profit. Without a doubt, nobody's questioning that. AAA games are the price that they are because it's what big companies believe will net them the most money per individual purchase without alienating a large group of people. A game's value is entirely based on how much you are willing to spend on that game and on what you enjoy, not on something like budget or hardware specs. I made a whole video about that too. And as for arguments like, oh, but the hardware was so much cheaper back then. All Nintendo consoles before the Wii were priced at $200, but shoving a PS4 into something the size of a Kindle Fire is obviously going to be more expensive today than manufacturing a GameCube was in 2002. The Switch 2 is said to be being manufactured for around $340, which is already a huge leap from the $200 GameCube. With import fees, that probably come out to be roughly $380 to $400 per unit, around double the GameCube's MSRP. While it's up in the air if the Switch 2 is making a profit in the US, they've never started a generation by selling their hardware at a loss. Even the GameCube was sold at a profit until the price was slashed because, surprise surprise, they weren't doing so hot. Yeah, Nintendo's online was free, but so was everyone else's. Both Sony and Nintendo had free online during the Wii generation, but Microsoft's paid model proved to be so profitable they followed in Microsoft's footsteps. Compared to both Sony and Microsoft, Nintendo Switch Online definitely offers the most for your money. Again, $20 a year for NES, SNES, and Game Boy games, access to game trials, and an online service. I think paying for online in general is stupid, but unfortunately it seemed to be more profitable than having free online as a selling point. Your copious sodomy references earned you a vehement dislike. How disgusting. I was interested in the topic, but Wii U delivery is so revolting that I stopped watching. Gross. I mean, I don't want to be that guy, but you use sodomy wrong. Sodomy is specifically anal and oral. I only mentioned that like twice, maybe once or twice. Everything else was regular, I think. I'd have to go back and watch it, but I think I'm right. So, you gotta learn up on your vocabulary, I guess. Just lock in, gang. This is a great channel. Please don't fall off. I'll try, King. A common idea that was shared by a lot of people complaining in my comments section was that old Nintendo was less problematic. You're wrong. I don't know what to tell you. You're just wrong. They tried suing Blockbuster and Game Genie during the NES era. They teamed up with Microsoft to try and get any software rentals banned from video rental stores. They promoted countless dog shit, absolutely worthless games through Nintendo Power. They restricted the Binding of Isaac from coming out on the 3DS because it was a little too controversial. Sure, you might have had the illusion that they were less problematic. But where were they going to start a problem? MySpace? There was no widely used and monetized video sharing platform to take down content on, way less emulators and ROMs to take down, and way less people online complaining about their doo-doo water practices. Nintendo Power sure as hell wasn't going to talk shit. So how could you be in the know when your two main options were a gaming magazine that was literally owned by Nintendo, or internet that's only slightly faster than my Epic client? Kid never played on GameCube broadband. Buddy, you have 2004 in your username. I hope that's the year you got married. If that's when you were born, you are 4 years older than me. This is diabolical. If your balls haven't dropped, don't lecture me about old Nintendo. Like a 30-year-old man making fun of a 17-year-old for making a YouTube video. You gotta lock in, gang. Put the fries in the bag. Nintendo is better than they were before. That's a fact. They don't take down gameplay videos anymore. They tried hosting a Smash circuit. They take more risks on games, like bringing back old franchises that maybe didn't do so well. They made old titles more accessible. They're remaking and remastering a bunch of old shit that people were begging for, and they're the only one of the big three that denounces and rejects the use of AI. And as for them losing their creativity, like a lot of people say, Brotosynthesis, they released an alarm clock. And cardboard. What are people talking about when they say they've lost their spark? If we really look at it, most of their experimental shit failed. If they went for another insane gimmick, it's way more likely that they'd end up with another Wii U or Virtual Boy rather than a Wii or a DS. That's not to say I think they shouldn't do experimental shit at all, but at least shit that serves a purpose, like the mouse controls on the Joy-Con, or the touchscreen on the DS. Something where I can look at it without anyone explaining it to me, and I can immediately see why I can use this. Their pricing is just a reflection of the company's success. The more successful the company, the higher their price. The worse they're doing, the lower the price. It's nothing new. And while it's still not good, it's not new. So we should stop acting like this is some new villain arc that they're going on when these are the same tactics they've been using for decades. And once again, at least Nintendo isn't EA.